So today we welcome Tavona Denise to the Convert with Confidence Summit. Tavona is the creator of the Launch Therapy Method, a process that helps coaches with group launches so that they can bring in their favorite clients consistently without suffering from launch burnout or hating the process. And I hear the word launch and it's just like, just a lot of work. So Tavona, can you first tell the audience what motivates you to do the work that you do and what motivated you to start your business?
Well, what motivated me to start my business was the 4-hour work week. And I tell everybody, if you've read that by Tim Ferriss, he is the reason that I get to live in Mexico now, because that book sparked in me a desire to be one of those people who could live anywhere, who just had the freedom to call their own shots. And so that's what motivated me to start my business. And then in terms of the work that I do with helping coaches who have group programs learn to love their launches and love the process, and look forward to them, is because I burned out before. I burned out multiple times before I figured out how to launch in a way that felt fun to me, that felt doable, that felt like something I actually wanted to do again. And really, it started with my very first launch. I was like any other person, just making up stuff, doing all the things. And I had a really successful first launch for somebody that didn't have anybody's roadmap or blueprint. It was an 18K launch, but I was exhausted after it. And that really affected my next launch of the same program, because I was like, if this is what launching is like, I'm just so tired. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it again. And so, of course, that was reflected in my results. And then I said, okay, let me regroup. And I did it a third time and started having 5-figure launches again, and with less stress, because by then it had started to become a process. I had started to work out the kinks and I didn't have to create all of that stuff. So it really, that was my first bout with launch burnout. And then, as most of us do, we evolve and we pivot and we shift. And then I did another launch for a different program as I grew as a coach. And that launch was over 6 figures. And yes, it was successful, but I was toast. I was so like exhausted is not even the word for it. And it was in that moment, because not only was I exhausted, I was in a place where I was wanting to throw away my business. If this is how it's going to be one of those successful 6-figure coaches, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I actually, for whatever reason, was even more petrified of running out of money, even though that was the most money I'd ever made in such a short period of time. And so at that point, I started to look at myself, because it wasn't about the strategy. It wasn't about the success anymore. It was like, okay, what is this all about? Why am I working so hard? Why am I rushing and hustling and doing all of these things? And ultimately, what I realized was that I was looking for the result. I was looking for the success of the launch to help me feel worthy, to help me feel successful. And that's why I was overworking. That's why I was hustling. That's why I was stressed out. And so that is part of the work. That's part of the work and part of the reason why I do the work that I do, because I know there are so many other people like me, type A, ambitious, go-getters, put me in coach, tell me what to do. I'm going to do all the things, and I'm going to do, like, I'm going to be the perfectionist. I'm going to be the best student. I'm going to do all of that. And it's like, it's exhausting. Especially when you are looking for the validation and the proof that you are successful and worthy in the result. And it's also exhausting. The other side of what I learned for myself and what I help clients with is it's exhausting when you're not doing it in a way that feels good to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, for you in the end, was it like a matter of changing up your strategy, or was it just like realizing like I need to take a break once in a while, or was it a combination of the both for you?
No, I think I had a podcast called Breaking Protocol once upon a time, just because I consider myself to be a little bit of a rebel. So I I think I did a good job for the most part of choosing strategies that felt good to me to do. I see that a lot of times with people. They'll choose a strategy just because so and so is saying it's the best one, or so and so's made oodles of dollars with that. So they choose that one because they're chasing the success without stopping to say, but wait, do I want to do that, or do I want to choose that strategy? So I think for me, I had chosen strategies that felt good to me, and I was also pretty good at saying, okay, I like this part of, but I don't like this part here, so I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to do it this way. But for me, it was really like you were saying, that it was more take a break. Like even after I had that big launch, I didn't want to go on vacation because I didn't want to lose momentum. I didn't want to run out of money. So if I'm in that
Yeah, I
front
get.
mind frame, right, then I got to stay hustling, even though the whole point was to make the money so that I could
Yeah,
have a certain life.
it's a
Right. And so
vicious
that's the
cycle.
mind trip that we go on sometimes. And so, yes, it was a little, it was like not wanting the result to determine my success and how good of a coach I was. It was giving myself permission to take a break, to celebrate. Like, can we just breathe for a minute and celebrate the success that we've created? It was also about taking care of myself throughout the process, because I find that sometimes what I see is either people abandon themselves completely while they're building the business, and how long will your energy stay then?
Mhm.
Or they maybe have a routine, that they have a exercise routine, they eat a certain way, they have all of that set up, but then when they're in the process of launching, it's like all of that goes out the window. And so it was a combination of all of those things, like really paying attention to my energy, physical, mental, emotional energy, figuring out what are the things that fill my cup and making them a part of the launch plan.
Yeah, I can totally relate as I'm working on launching the summit, which is like a 2 month process, really. I tend to go in this overdrive sometimes, but then what helps ground me is like, okay, what happens if I don't? Like what happens if I skip working out today or just don't cook for tomorrow? And it's just, again, it's like once we start down that pattern and it just like snowballs and snowballs, it's like you start to dig yourself a hole that's even harder to get back out of. So I'm curious, Tavona, like what types of things do you help coaches and consultants launch? Are these like courses or like some sort of program, or like is there specific things that you help coaches launch?
Mhm. I tend to play more on the group program side, and some people have courses that have coaching with them. So or masterminds. So anytime there's a live component to it, that is usually my sweet spot. And part of that is because I think about launching as parties. And I came up with that concept when it just made it so much easier to me. And then I think of the launch itself as a party, and everything that we're doing is to get people to come to the first part of the party. So in this case, it might be a webinar, it might be a 5-day challenge, it might be a summit, it might be a masterclass or a workshop. And then they're going to engage with us there, and then they're going to go into this next part. This is like the after party, the part where they may be in that mastermind or that group coaching program or that course with live coaching in it. And so I like working with that, because I work with coaches, and most of us want to work in real time with people, as opposed to, let's say, course creators who just want to create the course, let it be self-study, make money in your sleep. But most of the people that I work with are coaches, and they really want to work hand in hand with their clients.
Why is it important? I'm sure some of this audience is asking, and I know a lot of us are struggling with like engagements, like in our Facebook groups or in our email list. We've got call to actions and people aren't taking action. Why is that period? Like, why is the launch so vital, especially in terms of like timing. And then I love how you call it a party. And I so want to know what you mean by that, because when I think of launches, I'm just like, okay, who do I have to hire? How much is it going to cost me? All the logistics. How long is it going to take?
And no wonder it sucks, right? Like, no wonder. But if you think about it, like, even let's say, for example, you're doing a 5-day challenge. If you're doing something that is really of value, if you're really being thoughtful about who should attend it. So let me go back to my party analogy. You are having a party, let's say a wedding, and the wedding is the big thing, the big event that you want to invite people to. Most of the time, the wedding is not for us. The wedding is for the guests, right? The most of the time, it's a celebration of us, but it's for the guests. So we're going to spend the time, the money, the energy, the people, come up with the guest list, deal with all of the seating charts and everything so that these guests are going to have a good time. And we're going to put it in the best place in town and have the best DJ and all of these things. And if we think about our conversion event, I call them, so that's the masterclass, the challenge, the workshop, then everything that we do is to get people to come to the wedding. So we're going to design that particular launch event with our favorite people in mind, the people that we want to attend. Like what kinds of food do they like? Are they gluten intolerant? What kinds of music do they like? Do they prefer a live band? Would they prefer, right? So we're going to design that workshop, that challenge, that launch event with them in mind. And then we're going to go out and invite them to that party. And so that's why I think about a launch as a party. If you literally just sit and think about, even if it's not a wedding, as grand as that, if you've had a major milestone birthday, 21, 30, 40, whatever, like if you were throwing a big birthday bash, or if you don't like birthday parties and stuff for yourself, your child, we were throwing their 5th birthday party, like what would be the steps that you went through? That is literally how I think about a launch, and they are literally the pieces of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have to plan it out. You got to figure out what you're going to include, what kind of events, right? And then at some point you send out invitations, right? So, now that we're all in this digital world, I'm really curious, Tavona, can you mention maybe like 2 tips on how we can, like, what makes it a party? Like, maybe, is there like one particular strategy or one tip you could, or even 2 tips you could give this audience? Let's say we are launching a program. I'm sure a lot of coaches here they have a program already, and maybe we're kind of just putting it out there. Like, here's my program. Nobody's really buying it, whether it's through email or a Facebook group. Is there like 2 tips that you could give the audience that would generate maybe this party vibe?
Well, the first tip would be, you really want to be clear. Like, everything starts with the offer. So when I say offer, I mean, who are you helping and what are you helping them achieve? So oftentimes when I ask people, what's your offer? They'll tell me, oh, I do one-on-one coaching. It's 6 months and it costs this much, and it's every week or every other week, and I've got modules and da, da, da. Like, no, that's not the offer. That's the container. That's how you deliver it. But the offer is, what do you help? Who are you helping, and what do you help them be, do, or have? So the first thing would be to get excited about your offer. Like, not that you need the offer yourself, but how do you put it together in such a way that you get excited every time you think about this thing? Like, whenever, if we go back to the party analogy, saying, oh, I got this bad DJ, or I got the best marble cake, like, we get excited about that event for them. And so we're so excited about the event, then we want to tell people, like, oh my gosh, it's going to have this, and it's going to have this, and it's going to have this. And you're going to have you who I'm inviting are going to have the best time, and we're going to have the best DJs and all of that. and we're going to have the best food, and you're going to get to see people that we haven't seen since high school. Like, you want to really get excited about your offer itself, meaning, again, who and how. So for example, one of my clients helps passionate procrastinators take their half-finished projects from half finished to done, their projects from half finished to done. So with that person, it's like, okay, I know you're a procrastinator, but you're not just any kind of procrastinator. You're a person who has a passion project that's just half done, and you haven't figured out how to get it done. So when we get together, I'm going to teach you how to take that project from half finished to done. It's all about that person. It's all the excitement about what they will be able to be, do, or have as a part of being in this party. Right. So that would be one thing. And then the other thing that I would say to make it more like a party and just being excited about your offer is, then now that we know who and we know what, is to shift the focus off of us. Like, I need clients, I need money, I blah, 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 to the mission. Well, it's hard to figure out what the mission is, and we don't know who the people are and what they need help with. So that's why the offer is first, and then focusing on the mission.
Yeah. Like, for everybody watching, you need to go back and rewind like what she just said, because I'm sure a lot of you viewers, and including myself, especially if you're like a recovering people pleaser, we're just busy on overdrive. We're like running on fumes and bending over backwards and undervaluing ourselves. And I think that's where a lot of this audience is. They're like ready to scale. They're asking, how do I scale? And maybe we're thinking about doing some sort of digital launch, but how can we do a digital launch if we aren't opening up time for ourselves to do something different? Right? And if you're not excited about it, I love how you pointed out excitement, because I can remember so many emails that I've sent out that I read it back to myself and I'm like, gosh, I must have like gone on like 2 hours of sleep, and there's no excitement in it. So for those of you watching, can you maybe go back and read your own content, right? Like, do you get excited by your content, and what is the state you're in when you're putting that together? It's so vital, right, Tavona, especially when you are the face of the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell people energy is everything. So I can give it, because I talk so much about relationships, because business is relationships. And we talk about dating. One of our clients is a relationship coach. And so we talk about, like, if somebody walks up to you in a bar, in the grocery store, whatever, 3 different people can say the same pickup line to you, but one of them says it and they've got this creepy energy, and you're like, ooh, go away. And then the next one, they say it with, they've got just this swagger about them, and you're like, oh, okay, same sentence, same pickup line, different energy. And then you have the other one, same pickup line, he maybe read it in a book, somebody told him that this is the pickup line, but he's got that scared energy, like she's probably going to say no. These 3 people will get 3 different responses, even though they use the same pickup line. And so it's the same thing about us. We have to look at our energy. And that's why I talk about being in the energy of excitement and thinking about a party, because if we are excited about our offer and we're excited to share it with people, because we know what's possible for them when they do the work, it almost sells itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure for those of you watching, for you coaches and consultants, maybe you're struggling on your sales conversations. I remember my conversations were like me reading a script, like going down a checklist. And of course, I'm just like, okay, have we hit that? We've hit that. Okay, here's my price. And then of course the prospects are like surprised. Because it sounds very like nonchalant, like sounds like I'm talking to my friend. And then if you want to be a high ticket or premium coach, we're not talking like, $200 packages, right? We're talking, anything 6,000 and above, right? So can you see the power of how you show up in your energy is going to, not just affect your sales conversations and your launch, but everywhere in your life, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So what message would you have for those coaches who maybe they're in the middle of a launch, they're exhausted, and they want to show up as excited, but they also want to show up authentically? But maybe they're running on fumes, maybe they're running on exhaustion. Like what would be the first, like a first shift you would have them make if they were to come to you?
Well, it depends on why they're exhausted.
Mm.
Right. So there's different types of energy and different types of exhaustion. Types of exhaustion. So are you physically exhausted, meaning that you haven't taken care of your fuel needs? Maybe you're not getting sun, maybe you have been at the computer all day, maybe you're not sleeping, maybe you're not drinking water. Is it physical exhaustion? Because my background is as a physical therapist. So what is happening with your physical energy? Then is it a mental exhaustion? Are you having to make a bunch of decisions? Are you having to do a lot of the work yourself? Do you have somebody helping you with that? Are you scattered and all over the place and have 50 million ideas, so you're only partially implementing certain ideas, as opposed to, okay, we're going to constrain, these are the 2 or 3 things that we're going to focus on, and we're going to do those well. Right. So that's mental energy. And then the emotional energy of, okay, tell me, are you experiencing a lot of pressure around this? Are you putting a lot of pressure on yourself to do what? Like, so for a lot of us, we really ignore and neglect the emotional drain that things are put on us. Like, are we feeling a lot of frustration? Are we feeling confusion? Are we feeling pressure? Right. And really, when I work with people, I'm looking at it from all of those aspects, because it may be a little of each. But usually, if I could only look at one thing for the rest of my days when it comes to launching, it would be, how do you feel right now? And when I say, how do you feel, I mean, what one word emotion are you experiencing in the midpoint of your launch? And especially if you're in the middle of the launch and the cart is open, in the middle, we have something that I call the launch lull. So when you first open the cart and say, ta-da, such and such, doors are open for enrollment, you're going to get people to sign up right away, typically. Then in the middle of the open cart, there's a little bit of a lull and not too much action is happening. But then if you don't quit then, and if you don't stay in some weird energy, then the last few days is when we see the late bloomers and the procrastinators come into the doors. And so in that launch lull period, it would be really just asking yourself, how do I feel? What one word emotion am I experiencing right now, and why? Because if I know how you're feeling and we ask why, then that's going to give me a lot of insight into your mindset and your mental space right now. Sometimes I just coached somebody on this earlier today. She was making the lack of result of a client mean that her launch wasn't working.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she had a number of people signing up. She had a number more people than the last time attending her event. And she just did the event 2 days ago. So I'm like, why? I'm so confused right now. Why are we making all of this mean, because you don't have 10 clients 2 days after your event, mean that it's not working?
Is this need for immediate gratification, you think? What do you think is that we need to know? Like, because I can think of like times I put in a post and I'm checking back 10 minutes later. Why hasn't anyone commented? Why hasn't anyone, liked it or signed up or purchased or?
Yeah. So then my question to you would be, okay, if they liked the post, then what would that mean?
Yeah. Maybe maybe like, oh, good. Like, it's marketable, or it's good enough, right? To validate, right? We're looking for validation probably, right? So maybe that,
right. And here's the bind that we put ourselves in when we look to the world to give us our validation. If we put the post up and or the sales page, we put the link up to buy and nobody clicks like, or nobody buys in the first 2 days after you put it up, then we make that mean that it's not good or I'm not good enough. But it could be so many things. You just open the cart.
Yeah.
Like you just open the cart.
I can imagine this happens with the launches, right? It's like day one of the launch and everyone's like, you may be hyper vigilant of the response to a launch, right?
Right. But it goes back to what the trap that I fell into, right? If then we get into this kind of scenario. So if somebody likes my post, then that means this is a good enough offer. Yeah. If 10 people buy on the first day, then that means that I will be successful at this. The problem with that is when we look to the outside world or other people to tell us like what we're worthy, if we're going to be a successful coach, if this is a good idea, then we're always at their mercy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's a draining process. Yep. And I know
100%.
I pulled into it. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you watching, do you get pulled into this? I love that the lull concept that you're talking about, because I can definitely think, I can definitely think like during my last summit, like there's everyone who signed up right away. And then it's like in the middle, you're like, oh shoot, what do I do? Do I do anything? And then at the end you get the procrastinators, but it's interesting. What comes to me now is like, oh, what can I do to just boost, maybe, to just put it in front of people in that lull rather than internalizing it, which I think a lot of this audience, the theme of the summit being convert with confidence. Our goal here is to be confident in that conversion process. And so to get out of the internalizing and trying to seek validation through how many likes did you get? How many people checked out? How many people signed up for your masterclass? And that's the loop we get stuck in.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Or when it comes to like, let's just relax, especially if you have thought out and planned out all of your material ahead of time, to trust that you've planted the seeds and that you have watered the seeds and they will sprout when it's time. Because I think that's another thing that messes people up in that launch lull period, is then they start freaking out and making that mean, oh, this is it, we're not going to get any more signups, versus this is human nature. People wait till the last minute. Mm-hmm. And if we had already planned out all our emails and our posts or whatever, what if that was enough to hit the goal? What would that middle part of the open cart look like for so many people? Like I had one client, she ended up going to Vegas in the middle of her open cart because we worked on trust and self-belief and knowing, like a knowing, not a guessing, not a hoping, but knowing that her people were coming.
I love it. Yeah. It reminds me of that. One of my favorite quotes is, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm sure this is resonating with a lot of viewers here, including myself, as I'm going through this summit. I can think of, I'm like, oh my God, I can't leave my computer on a Saturday because I have a summit. But then, yeah, knowing like, well, what helps me, I don't know, what helps me reframe it is like, what is an extra 2 hours in front of my computer really going to do? Really? With all the other time, an extra 2 hours, if I go to the gym or go hang out with a friend for the afternoon, is really going to destroy everything. And that that kind of helps me. So people here watching can steal that or not. And I know, Tavona, you have a free gift for this audience to help them with their launch style as well, which I would love to know more about. And I'm sure this audience is itching to know as well.
Yeah, I created the launch style quiz it's just a 6-question quiz to kind of help you figure out what might be the most aligned launch strategy for you when it comes to webinars, masterclasses, workshops, video series, multiple day challenges. They're like, okay, well, which one do you choose? How do you know which one is the best one? And what I have found is that it depends on your personality. It depends on your natural strengths and gifts. And it also depends on how the person will experience working with you on the other side. And so, for example, what I found over the years is that webinars, or let's just say video series they're consumptive. And so like the person just watches it and they consume it. They don't necessarily interact with it, which might be very similar to them if they participate in a membership or if they're doing a self-study course. So, but that is very different for those of us who co-create and interact with our clients. If we are doing, let's say, a workshop or a multiple day challenge, that is more similar to how they would engage with us once we're working with them. And so if you are one of those people, because the marketers are really good at saying, well, I do video series and that's what works for me. And it's the best thing. And I do webinars and that's the best thing. And I do challenges. So you should do that. And I'm like, but whoa, hold up. I know people who are extreme introverts who would like freak out if they thought they had to do a 5-day challenge. They're just like exhausted before they even start. They don't even want to deal with people that many days. And so when you just take the blanket, okay, I did a 5-day challenge and made oodles of money from it, so you should too. I just encourage you to think about that for a second. And so what the quiz does is help you, it takes into account some of those factors, including how seasoned you are with your current niche and target market, and will kind of help guide you to determine what might be the most aligned thing for you. So if you take that, I'd be curious to see what answer you get. Do you think that it is on par for you? And if not, I'd be happy to chat and make some tweaks to it, because of course there are always outliers.
Yeah. Why throw, darts in all directions? And I love how you talked about that. I think we can all relate to that. We see one ad, do a webinar and I made 30,000, and do a summit or do a master class and everything works. I think what I've learned at the end of all this is like, everything works.
100%.
It works, but it's like, do you want to do the work? Right? Does it feel good to do the work at the end of it?
Energy is everything, right? So if you hear this and it just doesn't feel good inside, then it's probably not the strategy for you. And so you get to figure out which thing feels the best for you. And I think, to your point, everything works. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it still. And so I think one of the biggest things that I could offer anyone in the audience that's like a little bit paralyzed with which should I choose, what's the right one, what's the best one, is to really get grounded in what feels good to you, what is a natural fit for you, what would be a natural tendency for you, because if you would naturally and easily do it, it's probably going to be easy for you in business. It's one less hurdle to jump over. And yeah, that would be the biggest thing, and be willing to experiment. I don't think enough of us, we're so worried about getting it quote unquote right or wrong that we're unwilling to experiment. So with everything, you just get to say, okay, I'm an extrovert. I'm going to try this 5-day challenge. I think I'm going to get certain results, and then go do it. And if you don't get the desired result, know that all you've done is disprove the hypothesis. I have a hypothesis that certain things going to happen. I carry out the experiment. That thing doesn't happen. And so then, instead of making it about me, I suck, I'm not meant to do this, launches are stupid, da 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 da. Okay, I expected this result. I didn't get it. What happened? Mm-hmm. And then when you ask that question in that way and take it off of you, then you can start going to work at, oh, I forgot to do this, or I didn't do this, or maybe I need to tweak this. And then you run the experiment again.
Oh, such a good methodology. It feels, just the way you said it already feels easier. Just like,
you're welcome.
So Tavona, I want to thank you so much for your time at the summit. Just such a valuable information here. Like, just this little tiny piece we often forget about is the buildup, right? The anticipation, so that people are enjoying the experience as well. I mean, experience is everything, right? If you're not enjoying it, probably your prospects aren't going to enjoy it, and it just turns into a domino effect. So scroll down on the page, go click the link below to get Tavona's free gift. Go check out the quiz. I'm going to go find out my style. I think I have already a good idea what it is. But Tavona, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure having you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.